My parents gave our company to my cousin, and it's all mine now. So I secretly bought it back.
I remember the night I first realized something was wrong in my family. We were sitting at the dinner table. My mother, Helen, placed a plate in front of my cousin Daniel and smiled at him like he had just done something amazing. "Daniel, you worked so hard today," she said warmly. "I'm proud of you." Daniel shrugged like it was nothing. "It was just homework, Aunt Helen." My father, Richard, nodded. "Still, discipline matters. That's how successful men are made." I sat there quietly, chewing my food. I had also finished my homework that day. Actually, I had finished it faster than Daniel, but nobody asked about it, nobody noticed. Daniel had moved into our house 2 years earlier after his father died. At first, I felt bad for him. One evening I told him, "You can have the bigger room if you want." He looked surprised. "Really?" "Yeah," I said. "You've had a rough year." Back then, I thought we would become brothers. But things slowly changed. At dinner one night, my father said proudly, "Daniel has leadership qualities." I looked up. "What do you mean?" "He organized his study group," my father said. "That's initiative." Daniel smiled a little. I said quietly, "I helped my class win the science competition today." My mother barely looked up. "That's nice." Then she turned back to Daniel. "Daniel, do you want more potatoes?" I felt something small twist inside my chest. A week later, my report card came home. Straight A's. I placed it on the table. "Dad, I got my grades." He glanced at it for 2 seconds. "Good," he said. Then Daniel walked in holding his own paper. "I got a B in math," he said. My mother gasped like he had climbed Mount Everest. "That's wonderful," she said. "Math is hard." I stared at them. "Dad," I said slowly, "I got all A's." He nodded absent-mindedly. "Consistency matters," he said. Then he looked at Daniel again. "You're improving. That's what counts." Later that week, I met my best friend Marcus at the basketball court. He tossed me the ball. "You look annoyed." "I'm fine," I said. "Don't lie," he said. "What happened?" I hesitated. "Nothing," I said finally. Marcus crossed his arms. "Your family again?" I laughed a little. "They just like Daniel more," I said. Marcus frowned. "Why?" "His dad died," I said. "They feel bad for him." Marcus bounced the ball slowly. "That doesn't mean they should ignore you." "They don't ignore me," I said quickly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Really?" I didn't answer. That night we had dinner again. My father looked at Daniel and said proudly, "One day you'll run a big company." Daniel chuckled. "You think so?" "I know so," my father said. I waited. I waited for him to say something about me too. Maybe he would say, "Both of you boys will succeed." But he didn't. He just kept talking to Daniel. After dinner, I went upstairs to my room. Daniel followed, me halfway up the stairs. "Hey," he said casually. "What?" I asked. "You're quiet tonight." "I'm tired," I said. He leaned against the railing. "You know Uncle Richard believes in me a lot," he said. I forced a smile. "That's good," Daniel shrugged. "I guess I just stand out more." Something about the way he said it bothered me. "Maybe," I said. He smiled slightly and walked away. I stood there alone on the stairs for a moment. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I replayed the dinner conversation in my head. My father's voice. "Daniel will do great things one day," I whispered quietly to the empty room. "What about me?" No answer came. The house was silent. For the first time, a strange thought entered my mind. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe my parents didn't really see me anymore. I turned over in bed and closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come easily. Because deep down I felt something changing, something quiet, something painful, and something that would shape the rest of my life. In my parents' eyes, I was no longer their priority, and Daniel knew it. The older Daniel and I got, the clearer everything became. One morning, my mother knocked on Daniel's door. "Daniel," she called gently, "your tutor will be here in 10 minutes. I stepped out of my room holding my backpack. "A tutor?" I asked. My father looked at me from the hallway. "Business preparation classes." "For Daniel?" I asked. "Yes," he said simply. Daniel walked out of his room stretching. "Morning," he said casually. My mother smiled at him. "Ready for your lesson?" Daniel shrugged. "I guess." I looked at my father. "I could use help with economics, too." He barely looked up from his phone. "You'll manage." That was the end of the conversation. Later that week, I was washing dishes after dinner when Daniel walked past me. "You're still doing chores?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "My tutor says time is better spent learning strategy," he said. I wiped my hands on a towel. "Your tutor doesn't know our house rules." Daniel smirked slightly. That same month, I got a job at a small grocery store. When I told my parents, my mother nodded distractedly. "That's responsible," she said. Daniel spoke up from the couch. "Why do you need a job?" "For books," I said. My father finally looked at me. "Work experience is good for character." I wanted to say something else, like maybe the family could help me, but I already knew the answer. A few weeks later, my Aunt Clara visited. She hugged Daniel tightly. "My brilliant boy," she said proudly. Daniel laughed. "Mom, relax." Clara sat at the table and looked at my parents. "Daniel has natural leadership," she said. My father nodded immediately. "I see that too." My mother smiled warmly. "He's special." I sat there quietly drinking water. Clara turned to me. "You should watch how Daniel handles things," she said. "Maybe you'll learn something." My mother added calmly, "That's true." I looked up slowly. "Learn from him?" "Yes," she said. "He has good instincts." Something about those words hit harder than I expected. That night I called Marcus. He answered immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked. "How do you know something's wrong?" I said. "You only call this late when you're angry." I leaned back in my chair. "My parents think Daniel is some kind of genius." Marcus laughed. "Is he?" "No," I said. "Then why do they act like that?" I rubbed my forehead. "I don't know." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "That's messed up," he finally said. A month later, we had a large family gathering. Relatives filled the house. Laughter echoed through the living room. My father raised a glass. "Everyone," he said proudly. "Daniel has something to share." Daniel stood up. "I've decided to start a company," he announced. People murmured with interest. My Aunt Clara clapped excitedly. "That's my son!" Daniel continued confidently. "My Uncle Richard and Aunt Helen are helping fund the startup." The room exploded with applause. My mother hugged him. "We believe in you." My father shook his hand firmly. "This is just the beginning." My cousin, Jake, leaned toward me and whispered, "Did you know about this?" "No," I said quietly. Daniel looked around the room proudly. "I think this could grow into something big." My father nodded. "It will." Everyone started congratulating him. I forced a smile and said, "Good luck." Daniel looked at me briefly. "Thanks." But his tone sounded more like victory than gratitude. Hours later, the guests finally left. I stepped outside and sat on the front steps. Marcus pulled up in his car a few minutes later. He got out and sat beside me. "So," he said, "how did the big announcement go?" "They're giving Daniel money to start a company," I said. Marcus blinked. "Seriously?" "Yeah." He stared at the street for a moment. "Why do they trust him with everything?" I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. because the truth felt too heavy to say. Marcus sighed. You deserve better than this. I looked at the house behind us. Lights glowed warmly through the windows. Inside, my parents were probably celebrating Daniel's future. Marcus nudged my shoulder. You okay? I'm fine, I said. But deep inside, I felt something strange growing. Not jealousy, not anger. Something colder. A quiet realization that I didn't belong in that house, the way Daniel did, and somehow I knew my life was about to take a very different path. 3 years passed before the moment that finally broke everything. One evening, my father called from the living room. Everyone, come sit down, he said. His tone sounded serious. I walked in and saw my mother sitting beside him. Daniel sat, across from them, calm as always. My Aunt Clara stood near the window. I looked around the room. What's going on? I asked. My father folded his hands together. We need to discuss the future of the family company. Daniel leaned forward, slightly. My mother nodded. This is an important decision. I sat down slowly. For who? I asked. For all of us, my father said. He cleared his throat. I'm getting older, he continued. Soon someone will need to take control of the company. I felt my stomach tighten. That company had been in our family for decades, assumed we would both be involved. My father looked directly at Daniel. We've made our decision, Daniel said quietly. Uncle Richard. My father raised his hand. Let me finish. The room went silent. Then he said the words that changed my life. We've decided Daniel will take control of the family company. For a moment I thought I had heard him wrong. I blinked. What? I said. My father continued calmly. He has the vision and leadership for it. I turned to my mother. Mom? She avoided my eyes. I think it's the right choice, she said softly. My chest felt tight. So that's it? I asked. Daniel looked at me. I didn't ask for this, he said carefully. But you're not refusing it, I replied. He stayed silent. I looked back at my father. What about me? He sighed like I had asked an inconvenient question. You'll find your own way. The words felt cold. You're serious? I asked. Yes, he said. My Aunt Clara spoke up proudly. Daniel has proven himself. I laughed bitterly. Proven what? My father's voice hardened. Enough, I stood up. I've worked for this family too, I said. My mother spoke gently. You're capable, but Daniel has more potential. The room went quiet. Those words hit harder than anything else. More potential? I repeated. She nodded slowly. Yes, Daniel shifted uncomfortably. I didn't want this to hurt you, he said. I looked at him. You didn't stop it either. He looked away. My father stood up. The decision is final. I stared at him. You chose him over your own son. He frowned. This isn't about emotion. It's about business. I laughed softly. That's convenient. My mother stood. Please don't make this harder. Harder? I said. You just erased me from my own family. No one answered. The silence said everything. I walked out of the room. Later that night, I sat in my bedroom staring at the wall. There was a knock on the door. Marcus stepped inside. I sounded angry on the phone, he said. I looked at him. They gave Daniel the company. Marcus blinked. What? They made him the heir. Marcus sat down slowly. And you? I laughed. Apparently I'll find my own way. Marcus shook his head. That's insane. I rubbed my face. They've already decided who matters. Marcus leaned forward. You can't stay here. I looked up. What? You need to leave that house, he said firmly. Why? Because they'll keep treating you like this. I stayed silent. Marcus continued. You deserve better. I thought about dinner conversations, about report cards ignored, about my mother's words. Daniel has more potential. Marcus stood up. So what are you going to do? I looked around my room. Everything suddenly felt temporary. I think you're right, I said quietly. That night I packed a small bag. When I walked downstairs, my parents were sitting in the living room. My mother looked surprised. Where are you going? Out, I said. With a bag? She asked. Yes, my father frowned. You're being dramatic. I stopped near the door. No, I said calmly. I'm just leaving. Daniel appeared at the top of the stairs. You don't have to do this, he said. I looked at him one last time. You already did. Then I opened the door. Cold air rushed inside. My mother called my name, but I kept walking. Marcus waited in his car outside. I threw my bag into the back seat and got in. He looked at me. You ready? I stared at the house for a moment. Yeah, I said quietly. Marcus started the engine. As we drove away, one thought repeated in my mind. One promise I made to myself. One day, they would regret this choice. Life after leaving my parents' house was harder than I expected. One night, Marcus tossed me a cheap apartment key. This place isn't great, he said, but the rent is low. I looked around the tiny room. One window, one chair, and a mattress, I said. Marcus grinned. Luxury. I laughed tiredly. Thanks for helping me, I said. He shrugged. You'd do the same. The next morning, I left early for work, at a delivery warehouse. The supervisor looked at me and asked, First day? Yeah, I said. You ready to work 12 hours? I need the money, I answered. He nodded. Then grabbed those boxes. The job was exhausting. One evening, I dropped into a chair beside Marcus at a small diner. I didn't realize survival was this expensive, I said. Marcus smirked. Welcome to real life. I rubbed my sore hands. At least I'm free, I said quietly. Marcus looked at me seriously. You're not just free, he said. You're starting over. A week later, Marcus dragged me to a business networking event. You need connections, he insisted. Inside the crowded room, I felt completely out of place. A woman approached us holding a tablet. You two look lost, she said. Marcus smiled. We're entrepreneurs, she raised an eyebrow. Really? Marcus pointed at me. He's the smart one. I sighed. Ignore him. The woman extended her hand. Sophia Carter, she said. I shook it. Nice to meet you. She studied me carefully. So what business do you run? None yet, I admitted. Marcus laughed. He's being humble. Sophia tilted her head. Or honest. I liked that answer. We sat at a table and talked. Sophia asked direct questions. What skills do you have? Finance, I said. Strategy, too. Education? Mostly self-taught. She leaned back thoughtfully. That can be powerful, Marcus grinned. See? I told you he's smart. Sophia looked straight at me. So what's stopping you? I hesitated. Family issues, I said. She nodded slowly. Explain. I told her a shorter version of my story. When I finished, she crossed her arms. You think your family ignored you? I nodded. She smiled slightly. Good. Marcus blinked. Good? Sophia pointed at me. Use that anger. I frowned. You make it sound simple. It is simple, she said calmly. Not easy, but simple. What do you mean? You've been underestimated your whole life, she said. That's an advantage. Marcus laughed. Never. Heard that before, Sophia continued. Most people with privilege become lazy. You don't have that problem. Her words stayed in my mind. Over the next few months, we started small projects. One night, Marcus said excitedly, Our online store just made its first profit. How much? I asked. $300. I laughed. Not exactly a fortune. Sophia shrugged. It's a start. We kept building. Small deals, small investments, slow growth. One evening, we sat in Sophia's office reviewing numbers. Marcus stretched his arms. I think we're actually doing this. Sophia nodded. Yes. I stared at the spreadsheet. For the first time, I said slowly. Someone believes in me. Sophia looked at me. You should believe in yourself first. Marcus pointed at me. See? She's the motivational speaker. Now. Sophia smiled slightly. Then she said something that stayed with me forever. You don't need your parents' approval. I looked up. Are you sure? She nodded. Absolutely. That sentence changed something deep inside me. Months passed. Our small ventures slowly grew stronger, but sometimes I still heard news about my family. One night, Marcus showed me an article on his phone. Look, he said. I read the headline. Daniels. Company had expanded into 3 new markets. Marcus whistled. Your cousin is doing well. I stared at the screen quietly. My parents must be proud, I said. Sophia leaned over and read the article. Rapid growth, she said thoughtfully. That's good, right? Marcus asked. Sometimes, she replied. I looked at her. What do you mean? Sophia tapped the screen. Growth without experience can be dangerous. Marcus shrugged. He has money and support. Sophia shook her head. Success built on favoritism can be fragile. I folded my arms. You think he'll fail? Sophia looked thoughtful. I think pressure reveals weaknesses. Marcus leaned forward. So you're saying cracks might appear? Sophia nodded slightly. Yes. I looked at the article one more time. Daniel smiling beside my parents. Everything looked perfect. But something in my instincts whispered a different story, and somehow I felt those cracks were already forming. 5 years passed faster than I expected. One afternoon, Marcus walked into my office holding a magazine. You're going to like this, he said. I looked up from my laptop. What is it? He tossed the magazine on my desk. On the cover was Daniel, standing beside my father. The headline read, The Next Generation of Business Leadership. Marcus leaned against the wall. Your cousin is famous now. I stared at the photo. Daniel looked confident. My father looked proud. Marcus crossed his arms. How does that make you feel? Nothing, I said quietly. Marcus laughed. That's a lie. Before I could answer, Sophia walked in holding a tablet. You two should see this, she said. Marcus pointed at the magazine. We already are. Sophia glanced at it and shrugged. Public image doesn't always match reality. I frowned. What do you mean? She placed the tablet on my desk. Look at these numbers. I studied the financial chart. Where did you get this? I asked. Industry contacts, she replied. Marcus leaned closer. Is that Daniel's company? Yes. I scanned the numbers again. Something felt wrong. Revenue is high, I said slowly. Sophia nodded. Look deeper. I clicked through the reports. Debt levels. Risk exposure. Aggressive expansion. Wait, I said. These investments are unstable. Marcus frowned. Explain. Sophia folded her arms. Daniel has been making risky moves. Like what? Marcus asked. Expanding too fast. Partnering with unreliable firms? I leaned back in my chair. That's reckless. Sophia nodded. He's chasing rapid success. Marcus laughed. Well, he always liked attention. I scrolled through another report. Who approved this partnership? I asked. Sophia pointed at a name. Victor Hayes. I stopped reading. That Victor Hayes? Marcus looked confused. Who? Sophia sighed. A corporate predator. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Meaning? He invests in struggling companies, Sophia explained, then takes control. I felt a chill. Why would Daniel work with him? Sophia shrugged. Probably thought he was gaining powerful support. Marcus shook his head. That sounds like a terrible idea. I opened another document. Look, at this, I said quietly. Sophia stepped closer. What? These loan agreements. Marcus leaned over my shoulder. What's wrong with them? I pointed at the terms. If the company misses certain profit targets, Hayes gains influence. Sophia nodded slowly. Exactly. Marcus blinked. So Daniel basically invited a shark into the water. I rubbed my temples. This is worse than I thought. Sophia sat down across from me. There's more. She slid another report toward me. I scanned it quickly. Then I froze. This can't be right. Marcus looked nervous. What is it? Cash flow problems, I said quietly. Sophia nodded. The company is overextended. Marcus stared at the numbers. Wait, are they losing money? Not yet, Sophia said. But they're close. I leaned back and exhaled slowly. Daniel's empire suddenly looked fragile. Marcus spoke carefully. So the golden boy is struggling. Sophia nodded. Behind the scenes, yes. I stared at the documents. Why hasn't anyone noticed? Sophia smiled slightly. Public success hides private mistakes. Marcus whistled. That's brutal. I scrolled through one final report, then everything became clear. This company is walking on a cliff, I said quietly. Sophia nodded. One bad quarter could destroy them. Marcus looked at me. Your parents invested everything there, right? Yes. So if the company collapses, they lose everything, I finished. The room fell silent. Marcus sat down slowly. That's insane. Sophia looked directly at me. You need to decide something. What? Whether you're involved? Marcus spoke carefully. Are you going to help them? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I stared at the documents again. Daniel's signature, Victor Hayes' contracts, the company's debt. My parents had trusted Daniel with their entire fortune. They had chosen him, not me. Marcus spoke again. You could warn them. Sophia remained silent. I looked at the reports one more time. For years, I had been the invisible son, the one who was told to find his own way. Now fate had quietly placed something powerful in front of me. A decision. Marcus asked softly, What are you thinking? I closed the laptop slowly. I'm thinking, I said, that this isn't my responsibility. Sophia studied my face. Are you sure? I nodded slowly. My parents made their choice. Marcus leaned back. And now? I looked at the financial reports again. Daniel's empire. Victor Hayes waiting in the shadows. The fragile balance of power. For the first time in years, I said quietly, I have a choice. Sophia raised an eyebrow. And what choice is that? I looked up. The choice to do nothing. Marcus stared at me. That's cold. Maybe, I said, but sometimes silence is the most powerful move. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city lights glowed. Somewhere out there, Daniel was celebrating his success. My parents were probably proud of him. They believed everything was secure. But the truth sat on my desk in a stack of financial reports. Their empire was already cracking, and for the first time in my life, the power was in my hands. Instead of confronting my family, I made a different choice. One evening, I sat in Sophia's office reviewing financial reports. Marcus leaned back in his chair. So what's the plan? He asked. I looked at the numbers on the screen. The company is drowning in debt, I said. Sophia nodded. Yes, Marcus frowned, but they still look successful in public. That's the illusion, Sophia replied. I tapped the table thoughtfully. What if we buy their debt? Marcus sat up straight. Wait, seriously? Sophia raised an eyebrow. Explain, you're thinking. If we control the debt, I said slowly, we control the pressure. Marcus grinned. That's cold. Sophia looked thoughtful. It's also strategic. I leaned forward. We don't do it directly, Marcus nodded. Use investment firms. Exactly. Sophia opened her laptop. If we spread the purchases across multiple funds, no one will notice. Marcus laughed. Your family won't even know you're involved. That's the idea, I said. The next few months became a quiet game. Sophia called me one morning. We acquired another 10% of their outstanding loans. Marcus whistled. That was fast. Sophia smiled, slightly. Daniel keeps borrowing. I shook my head. He never learned patience. Weeks later, Marcus walked into my office holding new reports. You're going to love this. What now? I asked. Another risky partnership. Sophia glanced at the documents. Victor Hayes again. I sighed. He's tightening his grip. Marcus frowned. So Hayes wants the company. Sophia nodded. He's waiting for the right moment. I leaned back in my chair. He thinks he's the smartest man in the room. Marcus grinned. But he doesn't know you're buying the debt. Exactly. Sophia pointed at the chart. We now control nearly 40%. Marcus laughed. This is insane. It's just strategy, I said. Months passed. The company's situation slowly worsened. One afternoon, Sophia walked in with a serious expression. They missed their quarterly target. Marcus leaned forward. What does that mean? Sophia answered calmly. Loan pressure increases. I nodded. Hayes will push harder now. Marcus rubbed his hands together. So when do you strike? Not yet, I said. Why? Timing. A few weeks later, Sophia rushed into my office. It's happening. What? Marcus asked. The board scheduled an emergency meeting. I looked up. Why? The company is on the edge of bankruptcy. Marcus blinked. That fast? Sophia nodded. Hayes is demanding control. I stood up slowly. Good. Marcus looked confused. You're happy about that? I've been waiting for this moment. Sophia smiled slightly. We now control the majority of their debt. Marcus's eyes widened. Seriously? Yes. He laughed. Daniel has no idea what's coming. The next morning we drove to the company headquarters. Marcus glanced at the building. First time back here? In years, I said. Sophia adjusted her jacket. Ready? I nodded. Let's finish this. Inside the boardroom, several executives were already arguing. Daniel sat at the head of the table looking stressed. My father stood beside him. Then the door opened. I stepped inside. The room fell silent. Daniel looked at me. His eyes widened. What are you doing here? My father frowned. I didn't invite you. I walked calmly toward the table. Sophia and Marcus followed behind me. One board member whispered, Who is that? Daniel stood up suddenly. This is my cousin. My father looked confused. Why are you here? I placed a folder on the table. We're here about the company's debt. Victor Hayes sat at the far end of the table. He studied me carefully. And you are? He asked. I met his gaze. Someone with a financial interest? Daniel scoffed. This isn't the time for games. Sophia opened the folder. Actually, it is. The board members began reading the documents. Confused murmurs spread around the room. My father looked at the papers, then his expression changed. What is this? I spoke calmly. These are the current ownership positions of your corporate debt. Daniel grabbed the document. This can't be right. Sophia folded her arms. It's very accurate. Victor Hayes narrowed his eyes. How did this happen? I looked around the room slowly. Then I said the words none of them expected. I now control the majority of your company's debt. The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel stared at me like he had seen a ghost. You? He whispered. My father looked stunned. You did this? I met his gaze. No, I said calmly. You did. Victor Hayes leaned back in his chair. Well, he said quietly, this just became interesting. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. You planned this. I shook my head. I simply paid attention. The board members looked at me nervously. One of them asked, What happens now? I answered calmly. Now we discuss the future of this company. Daniel stared at me in disbelief. For the first time in my life, the power had shifted, and everyone in that room knew it. The silence in the boardroom didn't last long. Daniel slammed the folder onto the table. "This is ridiculous," he said. "You can't just walk in here and take control." I leaned back in my chair. "I didn't take control," I said calmly. "You gave it away," Daniel pointed at me angrily. "You've been planning this." I almost laughed. "You learned that kind of thinking from my parents," I said. Victor Hayes watched us quietly. One board member cleared his throat. "Gentlemen," he said nervously, "the company is in serious trouble." Another executive added, "If we don't restructure immediately, bankruptcy is inevitable." Daniel shook his head. "We can fix this." I looked at him. "How?" "We'll secure more funding," he said quickly. Victor Hayes chuckled. "I don't think investors will be eager." Daniel glared at him. "You were supposed to support us." Hayes shrugged. "I support profitable companies," Sophia spoke. Calmly. "The numbers are clear. Debt pressure is too high." Marcus leaned toward me and whispered, "This is brutal." I kept my eyes on Daniel. He looked around the room desperately. "There must be another option," he said. One board member spoke carefully. "The majority debt holder now controls the negotiation." Daniel looked at me again. "You set this up?" I shook my head. "No." My father finally spoke. "Did you plan this?" I met his gaze. "No," I answered honestly. "Then how did this happen?" he asked. "You created it," I said. The room fell silent again. Daniel ran his hands through his hair. "This is insane." Sophia slid another report across the table. "These are the losses from your last expansion." Daniel barely glanced at it. "That project will recover." Marcus leaned forward. "It already failed." Daniel's voice rose. "You're not even part of this company," I answered calmly. "I am now." The board members exchanged nervous looks. One of them said quietly, "We need a solution." Victor Hayes smiled slightly. "I do have an offer." Daniel looked hopeful. Finally, Hayes folded his hands. "I take controlling shares." Daniel froze. "And what happens to me?" he asked. Hayes shrugged. "You step down." Daniel shook his head. "No." I spoke calmly. "There's another option." Everyone looked at me. Daniel glared. "You think you're the hero now?" "I think I'm the only one who prepared for this moment," I said. My father stared at the table. "This company is our legacy," Marcus whispered to me. "Not anymore." Daniel stood up suddenly. "This is betrayal." I sighed quietly. "Betrayal?" He pointed at me again. "You waited for me to fail." I looked him in the eyes. "No, you could have warned us." "Would you have listened?" He stayed silent. Sophia spoke softly. "Your decisions caused this." Daniel looked at her angrily. "You don't understand the pressure," she replied calmly. "Leadership requires discipline." The board chairman spoke up. "We need to discuss leadership moving forward." Daniel's face turned pale. "You're replacing me?" The chairman hesitated. "Investors have lost confidence." Daniel looked around the room. 5 years earlier, these same people praised him. Now they avoided his eyes. My father whispered, "Daniel." Daniel turned toward him. "Help me," he said desperately. My father looked exhausted. "We invested everything," he said quietly. "What?" Daniel asked. "All our savings," my father said. My mother's voice trembled from the corner. "There's nothing left." Daniel stared at them in shock. "So, the company was our entire fortune," my father finished. The realization hit him hard. The golden future he believed in suddenly looked fragile. Marcus leaned toward me again. "Wow," he whispered. Daniel looked around the room one more time. Nobody defended him. Nobody supported him. The same investors who once praised him now whispered among themselves. Victor Hayes stood up. "Well," he said calmly, "this empire is falling apart." Daniel sat down slowly. For the first time since I had known him, he looked defeated. I watched quietly. The golden boy was finally falling, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The boardroom meeting ended in chaos. Executives left quietly. Investors whispered in the hallways. Victor Hayes walked out smiling like he had just watched a show, but the most surprising moment came later. That evening, my assistant knocked on my office door. "3 people want to see you," she said. "Who?" She hesitated. "Your parents and Daniel." I leaned back slowly. "Send them in." A minute later, the door opened. My mother walked in first. Her eyes were red. My father followed behind her, looking tired. Daniel came last. He didn't look at me. The room felt heavy with silence. Finally, my mother spoke. "Can we talk?" I gestured to the chairs. "Sit." They sat across from me. No one spoke for several seconds. Then my mother suddenly covered her face and began crying. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I stayed quiet. She looked up at me again. "We were wrong." I folded my hands on the desk. "About what?" "About everything," she said. My father cleared his throat. "We made a mistake." His voice sounded weaker than I remembered. I studied his face. He looked older, more tired. Daniel stared at the floor the entire time. My mother spoke again. "Please help us." Those words felt strange. For most of my life, they never asked for my help. They never needed it. Now they did. I leaned back in my chair. "Why me?" I asked. My father answered quietly. "Because you're the only one who can fix this." Daniel finally looked up. "I messed up," he said softly. The confidence he once carried was gone. I thought I could handle everything. I nodded slowly. "You had every advantage." He swallowed. "I know." My mother wiped her eyes. "We trusted the wrong person." I thought about that sentence. For years, they trusted Daniel more than me. Now the result was sitting in front of them. I looked at my father. You remember what you told me years ago?" He frowned slightly. "What?" "You said I would find my own way." He lowered his eyes. "Yes." "Well," I said quietly, "I did." Silence filled the room again. Daniel spoke carefully. "So what happens now?" I stood up and walked to the window. The city lights stretched across the skyline. I remembered the nights I spent wondering why my parents didn't believe in me. The nights I asked myself if I wasn't good enough. All those years had shaped me into someone stronger. Turned back toward them. "For the first time," I said slowly, "you came to me." My mother nodded. "Yes." "And now you want my help?" "Yes," she whispered. I looked at Daniel. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He just waited. Then I said the words they didn't expect. "I'm not here for revenge." My mother looked surprised. "You're not?" "No." My father leaned forward. "Then why are you doing this?" "Because the company can still survive." Daniel frowned. "How?" I walked back to the desk and opened a folder. I've been studying the finances for months. Sophia's strategy reports filled the pages. Marcus's risk analysis notes were attached. My father looked at the documents carefully. "This could work." Daniel looked confused. "You planned a recovery?" "Of course," my mother whispered. "Then you'll help us?" I nodded slowly. "Yes." Relief spread across her face, but I raised my hand. "There's one condition." My father straightened. "What is it?" I looked at each of them one by one. "The leadership changes." Daniel already seemed to understand. "You're taking control." "Yes," I said calmly. My father exhaled slowly. "That's fair." My mother nodded. "You've earned it." Daniel sat quietly for a moment. Then he spoke. "I'll step down." I studied his face. There was no arrogance left, just acceptance. The balance of power had completely shifted. For the first time in my life, my parents weren't deciding my future. I was deciding theirs. And this time, I wouldn't be ignored. The first board meeting after the restructuring felt surreal. I walked into the room with Marcus and Sophia beside me. Daniel sat across from me, folding his hands nervously. "Welcome back," I said calmly. Daniel's eyes flickered. I guess this is official. Yes, I said. You'll be reporting to me now. He swallowed. Right. Understood. The room fell quiet for a moment. Marcus leaned over and whispered, You finally took the throne. I smiled faintly. Feels strange. Sophia placed her hand on my shoulder. You earned it. I nodded. Her confidence in me never wavered. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. So, what's the plan? I opened the folder on the table. We stabilize the company, focus on sustainable growth, no reckless expansions. Victor Hayes raised an eyebrow. And you're confident this will work? I'm confident because I've studied every weakness, I said firmly. Daniel looked down at his hands. I thought I could handle everything. I leaned back. You thought wrong. That's why I'm here. He didn't respond. He didn't argue. Just silence. My father cleared his throat. Son, Save it, I said gently. We move forward, that's what matters now. My mother's eyes glistened. I'm proud of you. I looked at her. Proud? After all those years? She nodded slowly. Yes. You proved yourself. I exhaled. Some wounds never heal completely. That hurt still lingered. Daniel finally spoke. So I just follow your lead? Yes, I said. We work together now. He nodded. His confidence had disappeared, replaced by humility. It felt strange, but also satisfying. Marcus chuckled quietly. Feels good, doesn't it? I smiled faintly. Strange, yes, but also... Right. Sophia leaned against the table. You've changed. You're not the same boy anymore. I looked at her. I'm not. I'm stronger, smarter, focused. Daniel glanced at me, avoiding my eyes. I guess I need to learn from you now. Yes, I said calmly. And I expect you to do your part. My parents looked at each other. We hope you can forgive us someday, my mother said softly. I shook my head. Forgiveness takes time. Maybe someday. But I've moved on, my father nodded slowly. We understand. The company felt different under my control. Decisions were deliberate, risks calculated, strategies precise. Marcus grinned. Feels good to be on the winning side. I glanced at him. Winning isn't the point anymore. Control, focus, and responsibility, that's what matters. Sophia smiled knowingly. You've grown into the man you were meant to be. I thought about every insult, every ignored effort, every night I spent wondering if I was good enough. They all shaped me. Every slight, every dismissal, every betrayal pushed me here. The board meeting ended, but I stayed at the head of the table, staring out the window. The city lights shimmered below. For the first time, I felt truly in control, not of the company alone, but of my life. No one could underestimate me again. No one could ignore me again. I was no longer seeking approval. I had become the man they never expected. Daniel would follow, my lead. My parents would try to rebuild our relationship, but the past would never disappear completely. Some wounds leave scars. Some betrayals teach lessons. I had learned mine, and now I was ready to shape the future. Not as the son they ignored, not as the cousin they favored, but as the man I had become. Years passed, and the company grew stronger than I could have imagined. One morning, Marcus walked into my office grinning. Quarterly profits just hit an all-time high, he said. I smiled faintly. Good. Sophia leaned against the desk. It's more than good. It's proof that patience pays off. I nodded. And strategy, too. Daniel knocked lightly on the door. Can I come in? I gestured. Sure. He stepped inside, holding a folder. I've reviewed the new plans, he said quietly. I wanted to apologize for everything. I raised an eyebrow. All of it? All the mistakes, he said. The arrogance, the poor decisions. And for not listening before. It was too late. I leaned back. It's in the past, Daniel. We move forward. He nodded. I just wanted to say I appreciate your guidance. I shrugged. You're learning. That's enough. Marcus whispered, Look at him. Humbled at last. I smiled faintly. Better late than never. A few weeks later, my parents visited the office. My mother looked around nervously. We just wanted to see how things are going, she said softly. My father added quietly, and to apologize too. I studied their faces, lines of age, fatigue, and quiet regret. My mother's voice trembled. We didn't realize how capable you really were. I leaned forward slightly. You didn't notice back then? She nodded. No, and we wish we had. My father hesitated. Then slowly, he said something I never expected. We were wrong about you. I paused for a moment, thinking about the boy I once was, the one who sat at the dinner table, ignored, invisible, the one who thought hard work would earn recognition. I smiled calmly. I know. Their eyes widened slightly. You don't need our approval? My mother asked softly. No, I said. Not anymore. Daniel stood nearby, watching quietly. He had matured, humbled by experience. Our relationship had improved slowly, though it would never be close. That's good to hear, he said. I nodded. It's been a long journey for all of us. Marcus leaned against my desk. And worth it. Sophia smiled. You've found peace, not just power. I glanced around the office, looking at the bustling employees, the charts on the wall, the thriving company we had built. The real victory, I said quietly, isn't the money. It isn't the control. It's this peace. Daniel nodded slowly. I see that now. My parents exchanged a glance. Silent acknowledgement of past mistakes. I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands. You don't get many second chances in life, I said. But when you do, you either grow or waste them. Marcus whispered. You grew. I did, I agreed. Sophia placed a hand on my shoulder. And you became more than anyone expected. I smiled faintly, thinking of the invisible boy who had once longed for recognition. That boy had grown into the man who finally controlled his own destiny, and more than that, the one who had quietly saved everything. I didn't need anyone's praise anymore. The son they ignored had become the man they could never forget, and that, I realized, was more than enough. Karma had come quietly, and it had delivered justice perfectly.